Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to get comfortable and listen in on candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. Tune in as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learned along the way. These conversations aim to inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination. Reclaim your power, strength, and vulnerability. Stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life you dream to live. Hello, our beautiful listeners. Welcome to today's episode of Women's Biz Podcast. Annie here, and we are going to dive into the world of financial empowerment. We have a trailblazing expert to help us do that, and her name is Lisa Sakai. Welcome to the program, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your program and talk about financial empowerment. I love it.
Oh, I do love it too. And I particularly love it when I can speak to a real expert because it adds so much value to our conversation, but that with our listeners around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who might not know Lisa, she's a financial consultant, co-founder of One Vision Retirement, and she's got over 12 years experience transforming lives, and she's into helping her clients fast track their bucket list. Don't you love that? I've always got a massive bucket list, and because it helps them attain their dream lifestyle. And why not do that earlier than later, right? Because we all never know what's around the corner. Not that we want to get doom and gloomy, but hey, if we can knock them off earlier while we're healthier, younger, and just getting our lives balanced, the better. So I'm looking forward to the actionable steps that she's going to share with you today, helping us with our financial freedom, because when you have freedom, you have more choices, and I'm all about that. So let's dive into it then, Lisa. You help people through our program, I think, called Bucket List Accelerator. How does that work, and how does it actually help people with their finances?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I focus on, so obviously the traditional, for those people who maybe don't work with a financial professional or don't know what that process looks like, traditionally you come in and you talk about your goals and your dreams that you want to do 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, which is good. I mean, we do want to do long-term planning. This is not a don't think about, long-term and just only think about now, right? We're trying to meld the two. But from doing this for so many years, I really realized that it is hard for people to keep up motivation for those long-term goals when they can't really see anything. You kind of look at stuff and you're making some headway, you're investing, you're doing, and then the market drops and you're like, oh, I lost everything. When technically you didn't lose it because you didn't sell out, hopefully. But that's how we feel. And it really is hard to keep motivation for something even 10 years from now, let alone if you're 20, 30, 40 years from now, right? You're not seeing the effects, the positive effects very quickly. And so if we can focus on also having shorter term wins, including bucket list planning, in between there, we start to build that financial confidence. We start to realize I can strategize, I can plan for something, execute, and actually finish it. And whether that's a trip to Bali, whether that's taking, cooking classes in Italy, whether that's buying a Lamborghini, whether that's just, being able to take a 2-week vacation and sit at home and do nothing because you can actually take that time off, whatever that is, those little wins and actually getting to start checking things off that bucket list really start to motivate you to continue to build towards those long-term goals because we attach them, right? So you don't accomplish one without the other. And it really helps you figure out who you are, what you want, what's your purpose outside of work. A lot of times people aren't really sure about that, and then they retire and then they feel lost, which is bad, or they're spending money in areas that they don't know if they are going to be happy or not. And then they feel like they're wasting money. Actually, I was on a different podcast and the lady was telling me about a friend of hers who dreamed of fly fishing. He never went, retired, bought all the stuff and went and hated it. I'm like, that was a big old waste of dreams and money, right? So it helps you teach you who you are and what you actually want in retirement, so that, I was talking to a prospect today and I said, what do you want to do after this happens? And he sat back and said, I have no clue. And that's scary. It is scary. It's a lot scarier than people think. So it gives you a sense of purpose on top of those wins to keep you moving along for your longer term goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is such a fantastic conversation to have, because I know, particularly men actually, often, their whole identity has been around that role, and then they retire, and then some of them within a year die. But some of them drive their wives crazy, or they then go, I just want to go back. It's like this feeling of being lost. So there's that in your activity, but definitely in your finances. And I learned this too. We had 5 children, including 4 in 2 years, 2 sets of twins. So it was pretty crazy. We had no money, but we did have this big goal that we would take them all to Europe when they were teenagers, because for a whole lot of backstory. But it was really amazing. And that time I went, I really do love travel. I love all of this. And then after that time, we actually did start doing exactly what you did. We got into hiking, and we went, okay, well, we might not be able to hike the Dolomites, but we can just go, for a hike locally, or go when we go camping somewhere, put that into the schedule. And it's a good thing, because we've now done Everest Base Camp, and we've done, Mount Kinabalu. We've been around different places, but we know that we want to save up because we know we like it. Whereas that's right, I don't want to get to, 65, 70 and go, one, my health can't help me might climb a mountain, or I don't know what I want. Which brings me on to that next little bit about, crafting that lifestyle of fulfillment in the present moment. So how do we get more in the present rather than waiting to see if we like it? And also with the world is still how we imagined it, with all our sort of preconceived ideas.
Exactly.
You've got to start leveraging those dollars to create that that lifestyle. I'd love you to share more insights, strategies that you help with individuals so that they can align those financial resources for the immediate, because that's the problem, that you often go, but I don't have anything immediate, and I dream that I'll have it all for that time in 20 years.
Exactly. And I think the other thing that I think is demotivating, or having too much time is almost a problem, right? Because we go, oh, we have 20 years. I'll start next year. I'll start, it's halfway, let's say it's halfway through 2024 and you haven't started on your financial, whatever you were going to do. And you go, oh, I'll just start next year. It's just going to be a little while. I'm too, we do all these things and we say, look, I've got time. And that's a problem, because we don't know how much time we have. We don't know when we are going to be forced to retire, or from job loss, from health, from situation, whatever that is. And our time that we think is just abundant can go very quickly. I mean, I can't believe we're in 2024 already. That's how fast time goes, right? What happened to 2023? So I think the thing is that we have to get really present on our current habits and our current mindset to help us build that present awareness to release and get some freedom. Because I think the biggest issue that most people have is they kind of shun and they push off finance as something that they're not good at, that they don't understand, that everybody else gets it, but I don't get it. I call it financial dysmorphia almost. Everybody else is doing well, but I'm the one that doesn't have their, stuff together, essentially. And essentially, when we do that and we kind of keep pushing it away and saying, oh, it'll get there, I just have to dream bigger or whatever, and don't put together some little habits that can get us going, then you just never get that sense of control of your money. And really, that's what we're trying to do, right? Is to get control of our money, so we tell our money where it's going to go, and we can put it in the right buckets to get us to our ultimate dream. And so when you think of bucket list planning, it excites you enough. And we go through a whole exercise where we go through What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? I almost have vision boards for people. We know exactly how much it costs. We know everything, and it gets you very excited for the experience because you can actually picture yourself there, which I don't think people do that enough. Honestly, I think, you have that friend that says, I'm going to go to Bali someday, and it's 10 years later and she's still saying, I'm going to go to Bali. I'm going to do it. I promise. Like, I'm tired of hearing you talk about Bali. Like, just go, so if we can put some things in place to control our money now, then we have that opportunity to really build in those strategies. And they're not so hard once you have a control of your money. But so many people are so afraid to look at their credit card statement or look at their balances in their accounts that they just won't do it. And when you don't do that, I say, if you don't have clarity and awareness around your money, you're not going to get to financial independence. It's just so much harder to do that. So little things like actionable items, I know, is a big thing for you. Like, what can they do? Just open your bank account, once a week. Just look at your credit card statement once. Make a date with yourself to look at your credit card statement once a week and see what you're spending your money on. And it doesn't have to be a shame fest of talking badly to ourselves and saying, why did you spend money on that? What's wrong with you? A good financial person doesn't do that, whatever that is. But you have to be aware of where your money is going in order to decide where it's not going to go and where it's going to go. Right. And so I'm kind of an anti-budget person because I don't think budgets work very well. But what I am is somebody who is aware of where their money is going. Right. And you can make those curbs. So if you're spending tons of money on Instagram ads that pop up and you're like, oh, it's $20 here, $30 here. And you see that over the course of the month, you're spending $400 on Instagram whatevers that are bringing no value to your life, that you don't even know where it is in your house anymore, that kind of stuff. You get awareness and go, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Exactly. I love that, because it is an area, financial dysmorphia. That's a really interesting phrase. And
I'm sure technically people probably hate that I use that, but it's for me, that's the best way to describe it.
It's like, oh, I don't want to do it because it stresses me or it overwhelms me, or I don't want to confront those issues. But that's exactly it. We'll all get hopefully some discretional spend money, and it's about choices. And we often do just, it's amazing what slips through when we don't consciously take that time to, look at it, evaluate it. Do I need to, if I get the choices, for me, it might be, do I need to have that, how often you get your hair done, or a pamper session, or this or that, they're all expenses and there's nothing wrong with those. But if I then choose to go, you know what, this holiday, or this is going to be, or this class is going to be helpful to me, I'm going to have to start making those choices and go, well, if I've only got so much money, which is most of us don't have the unlimited, otherwise we wouldn't be having these conversations. But we're going to have to go, okay, I'm actually aware of it, so now I'm going to choose where I direct it. But I also love what you've raised there, is actually have a little look at where you're wasting it, because there's so many things, and I do it too. When you sign up for something, it's got 5 days free, and you go, oh, I'm going to cancel that in 3 days, and then suddenly you're paying for it a month and 2 and whatever, and you just go, it's amazing what actually just slips through, right?
Totally.
Do you think this is a bigger problem for women? Is it a gender thing?
I think women beat themselves up more than men do. I think that's kind of the thing. I think men just kind of go, well, we're not really on top of our finances, but they feel like, men have this thing that if they bring in the money and everything's covered and they're kind of putting some money away some places, that's good enough kind of thing. Like they're doing their job. Women tend to internalize and shame themselves a lot about what they're not doing, what they don't know, what they, all this stuff. For some reason, I'll use a personal experience. Women don't get the education growing up that men do. So I grew up in a very affluent suburb of Los Angeles in California. I went to a really nice prep school. I went to a really nice college, that kind of thing. Actually, my husband and I were just talking about the difference of tuition cost. I mean, his his tuition over 5 years was a tenth of 1 year of my tuition for my school I went to. I mean, it's crazy the difference. And he grew up in a very bad part of Los Angeles. And yet, for some reason, he got all this education of how debt works and how credit card balances work and things like that. And my dad, who's very pro woman, I mean, I'm his only blood daughter, and he, basically he was pushing. He sent me to prep school. He wants all this education, but he never took the time to teach me about how stocks and bonds works, how debt really worked. I didn't have to take debt out. I was very lucky in that respect. So there was a big gap in our learning. And so when we bought our first house, I remember I wasn't in the financial industry at that point. I was a teacher. And I remember my husband asked a very specific question, which is a question you should ask, which is, we have a little too much cash sitting in the bank. Should we invest it to get a better interest rate? And I remember thinking, what is he talking about? What does interest rates have to do with this? Like, what? That's not debt. I don't understand what you're talking about. And instead of just saying, honey, I don't get can you explain what you're talking about? He would say, oh, rate of return. And then I might have understood it. I was so embarrassed by the fact that I didn't understand it, that I just said, leave it where it is. And he was like, okay. And that wasn't a catastrophic decision, but it could have been. And I made it fear.
It could have been. And it's just, fear, you're unaware.
I always call it fear of not understanding.
Exactly. But, if you're getting 3%, 6% somewhere, you could be doing it with a better investment. That's right. Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's going to take some baby steps is the reality for most people. Otherwise, they would have already been doing this. So, my aim is always on this podcast to go, well, what are some little things that you could do straight away? If you're that person who goes, one I haven't, we've already said, just look at your bank statement, but also, a bit of financial, learning, revisiting, for some people. What do you recommend so that they can start building those good financial habits?
That's a great question. So I always say, there's that old adage where it says, Grandpa used to say, pay yourself first. Well, Grandpa was not right about everything, but he was correct about this. I do think that you need to start putting away some money for yourself every month and just dealing with the consequence. I hate to say it. So you could start with 100 or something low. You don't have to start with, 1,000 or 2,000 or, something like that. Just $100 or just something small that gets you going in the right direction, and start making it a bit of a game. How can you challenge yourself to save a little bit more? Maybe in 3 months, maybe you up it to 150, or maybe you up it to 200, and make it kind of a game, because it helps you make those decisions later on. Like when you're going into Starbucks to get your second cup of coffee that day, that's another $8 out the door. Like maybe you step back and go, I have coffee at home. I don't need to do this. I want to be able to go up to $200 next month. So I'm going to hold back on that. It just gives you a different focus area. So just start putting money away, even if it's just in a separate bank account or your savings account. Start saving for yourself, because what that does is it starts building your self-confidence. It starts making you focus on yourself, which we don't do, especially as women. We won't focus on ourselves. So everybody else gets our attention. Everybody else gets stuff, but we don't get anything. And the thing is that in your financial journey, the one key player is you. If you're married, maybe it's you and your spouse. But essentially, you've got to take care of yourself, right? That's the whole point of when you're in a financial journey, you're taking care of you. And so I think it gives you a sense of, well, I deserve this. I deserve to save 100, 200, 1,000, whatever it ends up being, for myself. I deserve to take care of myself. I think that's the first thing that people can do. Oftentimes that's why I'm not a big budget believer, because we go, oh, well, I'll do a budget and see how much I can save. That's the wrong way to do it, because you're everything. And honestly, I hate to say this, budgets are made up. They're made up. Like I was seeing, I was in a part of a Facebook group, and the lady put that for a family of 4, they ate out and they only spent $100 a month eating out. I'm like, I mean, you have 5 children. You know that's impossible. I mean, really? Like, where are you going? That you're only spending $100 a month eating out with 2 kids? Like, I don't know. So to me, that's a dream. Like, I cannot believe that would be reality. And so essentially, we use these tools to play tricks on ourselves that are not helpful. So I really think you set your savings goal and you start there, and you just start building up to whatever that is. That would be the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would start to make it a habit to look at different statements, including like investment statements and things like that. People don't want to look at them because they're afraid they're going to be down. But I think that if you can just take a moment and actually look at them, you'll get used to the up and downs of the market. I also say another thing that people could do is that they could just read a financial article once a week. Just build some education, because you're going to start to build that muscle. Like I have a client who's a real estate agent, and she's scared to death of finance. She just can't stand it. And it was funny that she was, I was like, just start reading some stuff. And she happened to read something about a trust and how trusts work and stuff. And she was showing a house to gentleman, and he brought up something about trust, and she's like, I know about that. And so she started talking to him about different things she knew as just a real estate agent, not giving advice, but just building that rapport and pointing him in the right direction. She said, I felt so empowered. And I said, because you weren't shrinking away from something. And it just builds that confidence. Any little thing you can do to start building your confidence will help get you through rough patches like 2022 was in the US markets.
100%. Confidence comes because you've got that assurance. You feel comfortable, right? And you're not going to feel comfortable if you don't dive into it. So it's kind of like something that you avoid. If it's been finances, now's a great time to go. Don't avoid it. Dive in there and just become more familiar. When you become more familiar, you don't have to be an expert. Just get more familiar. I absolutely love that. I also love what you've said there. Not that I'm totally anti-budgets, because I do run companies and budgets are important, but there's a lot of creative accounting. There's a lot of creative accounting there. We it's basically just an estimate. It's a guess, and so they can be great if you know what all the absolutes are. And often, I've then taken on a CEO role at a company, and it might take 2 or 3 years to actually see what does come in. Otherwise, it is just dreaming. I love this topic so much. I also know that it can link very much with, what we've done in the past. You've really got to, let go of the past, or just give yourself that grace, that, daily gratitude, that, like, well done, you are doing really well. I love that sort of concept. Do you find that can be one of the biggest hurdles? It's actually identifying what the block was, so that you can then go, all right, now I'm aware of it. I'm now, such as example is self-sacrificing so much. Your kids can have 15 different activities, but you won't buy yourself one, coffee when you're out. Like, what?
Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff that we do, is we just make it about everybody else. And we think, and I'm not a mother, so I put this out there, being very frank. I'm not a mom. But we put things out there. And I used to be a teacher, so I saw this all the time, where we would say, well, I'm going to be a bad mother if I don't pay for this class for them to do, if they're not in 15 different classes during the summer. And realistically, now I can't speak as a mother, but I can speak as a child. I don't remember any of that stuff. Like, I really don't. Like, none of that stuff, soccer and all that stuff, like, none of that really made much of a difference to me. What made a difference is the memories I have are going to a movie with my parents and going to dinner and having shared experiences like that. That's what I really remember. And so we guilt tripping ourselves, all this stuff. And it's the Joneses thing, unfortunately, like, Sarah's mom's, does all this stuff. I should do that too, because I don't want my kid to, feel less than Sarah. We do this kind of stuff to ourselves. And I think if we can just start to put our blinders on and just say, I'm in my own lane and I really don't care what anybody else has to say about what my family is doing, we would be so much better off. It would be so much easier to get through life. Like I've noticed, I'm going to go on a tangent. I'll bring it back, I promise. But like, I come from a worrying family. Like I used to worry all the time. I worry about this. I worry about that. Worry if a client got mad about something, if I didn't phrase it properly, this kind of stuff. And I just read something and it finally resonated, which was, you can't control what you can't control. Just focus on what you can control. And that's it. Just stop worrying about everything else. And it's been about a year since it finally sunk in. It has been so much better for me, for my psyche, for my confidence, I can't do anything other than what I can control. And I can't control anything else. And, if we're trying to live up to other people's standards, you have no idea what they're coming from or what their basis is. So you could be spending $1 million on your kids every single year, but Sarah's mom still judges you because she doesn't like the color of your hair, because it reminds her of her, mother who did this or what, like you can't control other people.
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of a big, big part of it for sure.
I love that. I think for me, it's also about, just getting excited about what that money can do. Like when we started, it's about that, whether it's that trip or whether it's that occasion, whether it's staying in a certain hotel, whatever it is. Yeah. I think it's actually just getting excited. Why do I want that? Why will I love it? How will it make me feel? So for me, It's very much connected to the feeling. And an example also, back on that other comment that you were saying, with kids, I had 5 kids, as I shared, but one thing I did, because we had so many children, they all got one date day with mum per year, which sounds really crazy. Like obviously I spend more time with my children than once a year. But I actually pulled them out of school because there's always the gang, right? I actually pulled them out of school a day and they had this day. And so it might be that we went on a ferry ride because they were always sharing, and I had 2 sets of twins. So there's a lot of competition. And I went, Hannah, your date day is a couple of weeks. And they had to come back, and they didn't go and ask for the most expensive thing. It might have been just a ferry ride. It might have been to go to botanical gardens and see the ducks. It might have been to ride a train because we didn't have them nearby and they heard someone else went on one. It was really cool. Like, hello. But, they came up with random things. But the funny thing is, seriously, Lisa, when now they're, my twins are 32 and 30 and my youngest daughter's 24, they still remember the date days. And I'm the one who, did like many, many hours of dance classes and this and this and this. Yes, they were lovely, and yes, they do appreciate it. And but it's really interesting that plus our Europe trip that we saved for, and we all got in, and it's interesting looking back now and go, they're all spends, if you like, because back when we did have all those children, we didn't have much money, so even like $30 out to have a ferry ride and a little McDonald's somewhere, and it was all money that we probably didn't have. But it made me go, right, this is now in my budget, my emotional budget, and it made it exciting. So I think that's one of the elements. I know you help people do that. Make this financial empowerment more engaging, more vibrant, more exciting, because then instead of an expense, it's actually yes, it will be an expense, but it's something that you're really choosing to do. And I don't know if that feeling thing is right with you. I'd love to have your perspective on it. But for me, it's about, does it bring joy? Otherwise, it is just an expense, and then I resent it.
So true. No, it's so true. I totally agree with that. Actually, it's funny. It brought to mind a story of one of my clients. She was, she's an executive at a company, and she does very well for herself. And she always seemed exhausted though when I was, and she's an executive, so she's probably tired. But it was funny. I just was bringing up something, and she'd always say, "Oh, I just got back from X place for the weekend. I just got back." And I finally said, like, how many trips a year are we taking? on these little weekend trips. And we counted it up. She took 14. And I was like, that's a lot of trips. How much on average are you spending on these? And so we brought, it's about $1,500, give or take. And essentially I was like, well, you don't take big vacations. Why is that? And she says, well, I can't afford them. And so we just shifted to, maybe 2 or 3 weekend getaways during the year to, 2 nice sized vacations that she can invite her friends to. And she got to spend more quality time with them. She actually got to have that rest and relaxation that she wasn't getting from, flying here or going here or being, because everything's short on a weekend getaway. It's not like you got hours in the day to do stuff. You have got to go do stuff, whatever it is. And so she finally felt like she could take that time and actually like have the experience she wanted. Just by shifting her focus, shifting her want. And she said her friends liked it so much better because she said, I going to Jamaica, this point, if anybody wants to come with me. And so she'd have a bunch of girlfriends come that she was jumping around to see all the time. They just came there and they had a blast. And it was so much more fun, and she got to see them so much more. And it just gave everybody the break that they actually wanted. So it makes a big difference. And it's been a couple of years since she made that change. And she's like, those I remember. But she said she couldn't hardly even remember half the trips that she took because they were just kind of blurs,
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to do things that are blurs because that's right. You're going to blink and you'll look back and you go, I can't even remember them, but exactly. I don't see the evidence of it. We could talk all day. I've absolutely loved our conversation. I hope our viewers and our listeners have been taking some notes. That's right. Don't wait 20 or 30 years to start getting some of those bucket list things done. It's all about, in this conversation, it's about having a little think about what, where do you spend your money? Have a good old look. All right. Don't avoid it. Dive in there. Even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, reach out, put some comments in the chat wherever you're watching or listening. Lisa would love to chat to you. I would be very happy to chat with you. Let's go and say, you know what? I actually want to get some reward. I want to feel that joy. I want to start planning my life so that I can get some regular wins. That's what it's all about, whether it's, growth in any area of your life. You're wanting those regular wins, right? Rather than waiting. So I love what you said in there too. It's just break it down. Regular little bite-sized bits are so great. Or sometimes it's going, that's right, I had too many little ways of spending that money and I'm going to lump it together for something bigger, which is one thing my hubby and I learned. We realized we don't want to go to a hotel for one night because you've got to check in at 2 and check out at 10 and you don't get the same value. So we're now a 2 or more situation so that we've maximized our effort. Little things like that, you might not realize it, but have a little think back and go, was it really worth it? And also, what will it be worth, for me to really love this opportunity, wherever it is, so have those big bucket lists, put them on the vision board, and definitely, challenge yourself this week to become more financially aware, because we really want you to have financial empowerment. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Lisa. It's been a fabulous conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, pop on over to womensbizglobal.com, where you can find out how our coaching, media and publishing opportunities are helping women just like you to become and be seen as the trusted authorities in their niche. Inquire today and start reining in the abundance you desire.